Welcome everyone to the largest, fastest growing, and the most active large-scale Scrum virtual community. Now it's global. We started on the eastern seaboard of the United States in New York City years ago. Now we're definitely global. We have a special, two guests today. We have a duo. Both of them are my good friends and colleagues. I'll start with Chad. Chad Hendrickson is probably a very well-known name in the United States. He has been involved in agile software development since 1996, when he was one of the members of the Chrysler C3 project, and initially helped with extreme programming. He has detailed some of its core practices. Chad is also the first signatory of the manifesto, of the Agile Manifesto, and since 2002 has been an independent consultant, coach, and trainer. Chet has done a tremendous amount of work for the Scrum Alliance, and those of you that are members of the SA, like myself, you would remember this. Since 2009, he has been doing lots of work. He has developed the first certified Scrum developer program, and along with Ron Jeffries, whose name doesn't require any introduction, he's one of the Scrum co-creators, and he is actually a very, very good friend of Chad. He has taught the first CSD, Certified Scrum Developer course, and continues to deliver this sort of learning in the States and in Europe. Has been a certified Scrum trainer since 2009. And for the SA and for the Agile Alliance, Ron and Chad has done a lot of work. Chad and Ron and Chad has been curators of the Scrum Alliance's Agile Atlas website as well. And today his partner in crime and the co-presenter, co-webinar panelist, if you will, is Ugo Lourenco. He is my good colleague and actually comes out of Portugal. He just flew to the United States from Portugal, I think, within the last 24 hours. He is the founder of the Agile Thinkers and the World of Management Agility Forum. Has a lot of passion for innovation and a talent for transforming challenges into opportunities. Ugo has a dedicated career in optimizing processes that enhance customer satisfaction and drive success. And Ugo is also a mastermind behind the high performance team challenges that he has cultivated through the community of Agile thinkers. He is one of the most active and the most well-known community supporters and leaders in Portugal. So without any further ado, it took a little longer because we have two people that I wanted to present. I would like to pass the baton over to them. And so the gentlemen, both of you, the floor is yours. I'm going to go on mute and ask everyone else to be mute. Please take it away.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
We need to update my my bio because I've retired and I don't do anything anymore. So
that's an important thing.
well, you put your computer in front of the microphone. I wonder how that's working. How is that any better? Can you hear us at all?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. You want to start, Hugo?
Well, I also want to thank Gene to set up this webinar. Thank you to you all that are participating in this webinar. I hope we can have good discussions here, and that's the intent for the next hour. We have a good conversations, and it will be more around people and human beings that build great products than, in fact, going around the frameworks or any other practices. But we'll see where these discussions are going to lead us. To start, we'd like to bring one question to you, and unmute yourselves anytime you want just to have these conversations. How does trust within the team impact the success of a project or a product? How you see this today? Trust. I know that with remote work, a lot of people work by yourselves at home. Engagement with other people might not be as much as it was in the past. But how you build trust in whatever environment you're working, how you build that trust. Perhaps if it's a new team, you don't know them, trust is all there because you don't have any bias, any preconceptions. But with time, a couple of things might change. So how does trust within the teams impact the success of achieving a great product or a great project?
Freak, man. Like,
Here we go. We need to make sure these people keep their mics off, please.
Well, we're just asking him a question. So,
Oh, we did. I apologize.
so unmute and say something.
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit.
I think this person needs to be in a different meeting.
That's right.
This is not the meeting he's looking for.
Yeah. So John Kern says trust might be necessary.
Yeah.
So John, you think trust is not always necessary?
You think trust is optional?
A little bit tongue in cheek.
I was hoping.
Yeah, it might be. I don't want, I'm struggling not to say the word the only thing that's necessary, but
Well, you know, it goes
Up
along
your
with
ass and spread your fucking ass cheeks.
you got to
All
kill.
right, here we go, folks.
You got to kill John. John W is the yeah, boot him.
Yep. Hopefully you won't. All right, apologies, gentlemen.
Seen that? Yeah, meetup is tough. Seen that a couple.
That's our next webinar. We're doing it at 1. So he just got started too soon. Yeah. So that's interesting. You know, maybe without trust, it doesn't matter to do much else, does it? So, anybody want to add anything to that?
Trust just reduces the amount of micromanagement that happens and frees people up to do what they need to do.
So did any of you attend those meetings there? Everybody are with their cameras off and they don't know their names because they even have the names from accounts or whatever, and it's not even their real names. So
Yeah.
how to build that trust?
Yeah. So trust incredibly important.
I think Viju, you had a question as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think if you want like shared accountability, right? Shared ownership of the results, there needs to be some kind of trust within the team.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a good insight.
It is. And the thing we are trying to build here is how you build trust in a team. If there is no trust right in the beginning or even in the middle, should we continue? Should we stop? Should we hire new people? What is your what ideas do you have about this? Because trust is something when it's broken, it doesn't come back. Well, in certain cases might come back, but it will never be the same thing anymore. Usually it doesn't come back. And so when that happens, if you lose trust on the company, if you lose trust on your manager, if you lose trust in your teammates, how that happen? How is going to fix that? And what are you doing today to help that to succeed? Susanna said trust is needed for collaboration.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah, and most of the stuff we do really is about collaboration, isn't it? So anything interesting
I would
takes
say,
more than one person to build today.
yeah.
Yeah.
So companies are very, very good with KPIs. There is John already.
Walking.
First step. And so companies are very good with KPIs to measuring performance. And even on LinkedIn, several conversations about measuring developers' performance. You must find ways to measure their performance and so on and so on and so on. So they are really good on that. And even when they are not really good, I'm sure someone will come up with some KPIs, Excel spreadsheet saying how a couple of things can, might work. But how do you measure trust? Do you know any company that has? I met one recently. They have 1 or 2 measures in comparison to the other 123 measures they have, but they have 1 or 2 measures to measure trust among the people they have in the company. So how do you measure trust? So performance are your skills. You're doing the right things, you're doing the things right, but trust.
Have you ever seen any organization that you've been around have a mechanism for measuring trust? Because the trust
Haven't
is important.
I've seen things like happiness scores, right? Team happiness scores, for example. I don't know. I mean, that could be related to trust, but not exactly trusted.
Okay. I see Mark has raised his hand. Mark.
I'm sorry, Mark, I muted you and you're legit, so please ask.
No worries. I hope to be legit. I haven't seen an organization measure trust, but I've been thinking about so-called trust metrics. And it seems clear in the industry that psychological safety is kind of a leading indicator of performance. Performance is the result. I think we can build trust and have trust be the result as well by things like vulnerability. So yeah, I like the idea of focusing on the lead indicators, if you will, of creating trust, but I've never seen it measured myself.
I
Yeah.
have worked in companies where they did employee surveys where there were questions about trust, but I don't think those were very effective in actually measuring trust. Because if there's no trust, then the answers to those questions are not very trustworthy.
Of course.
Yeah, you say, well, who's going to look at this survey and how they're going to trace it back to me? So I better say the things they want me to say, regardless of what I really feel, right? So
yes, and the company was small enough that you could definitely trace back.
It's like nobody trusts those surveys where the best company with highest happiness. We're not saying it's not, but very rare people trust on those results. And when you see there is a lot of irony around that, it means something wrong is there, right? So the trust is basically, and when you put the performance versus trust is what you can usually, especially in the Navy, you say, can I trust you with my money, my life, and my wife? And usually that's the hard part. So trust people, it's really, really hard. And measuring that, it's difficult. So a lot of research and a lot of surveys have come up that people are okay to work with people with less performance, even if they KPIs about performance are low. But nobody's willing to work with anyone with low trust. Nobody wants to work with those people. And what we have seen is not many companies are tracking that or measuring that.
Well, I see that Suzanne, and she may want to pop in and amplify on this, seems to be saying, at least how I interpret it, that you would judge trust by how people are interacting based on their needs and their challenges. Are they open about the problems they're having, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Like, people can only do that when they trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is an opportunity to talk about what they actually need and what they find difficult. And there is an opening for how you can help them improve and improve teamwork in general. So
we have too many computers here.
Okay,
yeah, there we go.
very well. So we brought 5 topics. We don't need to cover all of them, but for sure that we're going through like a nice conversation through here. One is the importance of leadership. What are the values and qualities you find most important in effective leadership? Now we spoke about trust. What are these values? Because a lot of people talk about many things, but usually they don't refer much to values. And when we talk about Agile, when we talk about the frameworks, the practices we have been talking about over the last 20 years or even more, most of them, they focus a lot on the values. So John says we can sense trust. I think leading, not managing.
Yeah. So what kind of things have you seen and hopefully you've had some interactions with people you would consider to be good or great leaders. What kind of qualities have you seen in those? What kind of values do you think they based their activities on, the things they did? Honesty, authenticity. Oh, went back too fast.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability, humility. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A good leader knows that they, doesn't always think they're the smartest person in the room. They want to surround themselves with people that are smarter than them, right? And give them the ability, the authority, the trust to do good work and to do the right thing.
Yeah, trying to really understand the work. That's also a good point, Suzanne. Many times what we have seen is we don't need to be a software developer to be a good leader of a software development team, but we need to understand them. They need to be sure they can. We have the authenticity and the clarity to understand what they're doing, how they're doing, and to keep this channel open. So whatever we say, we need to be honest and authentic. We cannot say in front of them, "Oh, you're the best. You're so good. You're great." So much things about greatness, and then in the back channels, we saying, "Oh my God, I don't know this. These guys are stopping me, or we are delaying." So that is killing the trust. That it's mining basically all the trust they can have, because sooner or later they will find out this is not working because what he's saying is not authentic, right? Things like that. It happens many times. Other things is how to communicate with the teams. So today frameworks, they have very good ways to show that. And Chet was always saying, well, whatever work it is, we put it on a card. If it is work, it goes to a card, and then we organize around that. And today, most people, they use the chat, Teams, Zoom, doesn't matter the framework, they use all the kind of chats to share work with each others and to send message to each others. So they forget to work in a different way, so they can show that visibility, they can show that authenticity, that you want to learn, you want to listen, you want to be sure you understand what you're trying to say. These are many of the things that we miss in some of these. These are some of the values we miss and the qualities in this effective leadership. So here also, Paul is saying humble honesty, good listener. Diane, flexible in their posture. They adapt depending on the situation. John Kern, constant reminder on the vision and mission. Yeah. So most of the things that we are.
Yeah, I was just going to let's go to the next slide there, because that leads directly into this, right?
Yeah.
Because we have here, some of the challenges that leadership faces is, that they need to be able to communicate, what it is we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. Make sure that we're all working towards the same thing. They need to be able to recognize when the level of communication that needs to be taking place is not there. If you've worked in a company of any size, you have certainly seen situations where people in leadership in the upper echelons of the company believe that if they know something, everybody automatically knows it. And there's a constant struggle to find out what's really going on. And they're sort of amazed that people don't think there's good communication when they seem to spend all their time in meetings, but they're only in their time, their meetings are just talking to people of their same level, and the information never gets down to the people who needed to act upon it. One of the challenges leaders constantly have to fight against is does everybody know how we're going about doing our work? Do we have a shared model of how our teams are supposed to operate and what it is we're trying to do, and to understand when we're drifting off of the behavior we need in order to achieve the outcomes we want to achieve. And of course, maybe the most important thing is that good leadership needs to be able to help create a positive culture within the organization. It's always a struggle to understand the place of culture in an organization and how it has to change in order for the organization to change what it does. And it's tends to be a chicken and egg sort of thing, that they have to move along together. You can't really change culture without changing the structure of the organization and how people relate to each other. But it's hard to change the structure of the organization and how people relate to each other with the culture that's now out of pace. And so those things have to evolve together. And that's a thing that's difficult to do, but we have to pick up that challenge and work together to do those things. And it's not just a thing that can be done top down. So those are things that a good leader is constantly fighting with, because these are all difficult things.
And over the years, I also find out one that is also I consider very important, and based on my experience, I come up with this idea that also a good leader is someone that enjoys risk. It's okay to take risks. A person that is too much comfortable, he wants everything written, everything in advance, he doesn't like to take any risks, he like everything to be under control. So that is something that will impact what we have been discussing here. Because taking risks, one thing that is common between risk and success is both will be temporary. None of them will be forever.
Yes, and as people are saying in the chat, that there's a strong correlation between the level of trust you have in an organization, the trust that leadership provides, and their ability to accept risk. If you don't have any trust, then risk is something you are going to push back against. And so only with you have that trust can you take risks and understand that risk is opening yourself up to some degree of failure. That's what happens when you have risk. Sometimes things go the other way, and that isn't a failure. It should be thought of as a learning experience. Here's something we tried. What did we learn from it? Whether that's something, maybe it's just don't put your hand on the hot stove again. But sometimes you learn, okay, here's how we can do that better next time, and use that risk to learn things faster and to achieve success that we didn't know we could achieve.
Agree. So so Diane is saying, would it be fair? Would it be fair to say that great leaders build resilience, allowing the team to navigate uncertainty, which gives them the willingness to take risks? I think it's both, right? Even the leader or the manager, they need to be aware of the risk. Unfortunately, what I mostly see is, the release will be next week, and I'm not confident. So, and what I've been more focused on over the last few years is about studying and understanding the error. So the error happens, but it was not that day when the error happened. So we need to go backwards. You need to evaluate and you need to analyze where the error comes from. Why is that? Because sometimes we have seen this in many companies that someone says, this is what happened. Okay, let's build that policy. And from now on, nobody will be able to do that again. So because of something, now 400 people will have more miserable life just because of that. So instead of doing something like that, is understanding what mechanisms will protect us of this happen again. But we need to understand what the error, where did it start, where does it come from? Because most of the times it's not just one variable to consider. Many other variables we need to take into consideration.
I imagine that most of us have worked for one time or another in a company that you were not allowed to deploy updated software on Friday or the last day of the month or the whatever, because sometime in the past somebody did something. It was really odd. There was a time when I was at Chrysler where they put a ban on updating anything in like the last 3 days of the month, because car organizations, car manufacturers do this whole big thing about the monthly sales. And so lots of sales came in from dealers in the last 2 or 3 days of the month. So you're not allowed to do anything that could keep a dealer from being able to order a car in the last few days of the month. How that impacted us in payroll I never quite understood. But they just had a blanket, can't change anything. And that's, I understand that as a knee-jerk reaction to a problem, but that shouldn't be where that stops. You need to figure out, well, what can we do to make it safe to be able to change software anytime? You want to, a good team is one where you can deploy something on Friday and go home and not worry about it over the weekend because you know it's going to run. And that's a challenge. John, you want to add something?
Yeah, the one thing that comes to mind is not only as a leader do you not want to, let's say, chop the head off of somebody who makes a mistake, but actually more proactively look for opportunities to demonstrate that you're not overreacting and that when something happens that you're learning from it or otherwise making it a safe environment to maybe push the boundaries, explore. We all make mistakes, and learn out of making ostracizing people.
Well, there's that old story which may be apocryphal, but who knows? But of a fellow who worked at IBM who made some error that at the time cost the company $1 million, back when $1 million was something interesting to a company like IBM. And he had to go see Mr. Watson. Had to go talk to Mr. Watson. And he went in and he was just shivering in his shoes. He was scared to death because he knew Mr. Watson was going to yell at him and then fire him. And Watson's talking to him. And finally he said, what's the matter? What do you think I'm going to do to you? He said, well, you're going to fire me. I said, I'm not going to fire you. I just spent $1 million teaching you something. I'd be crazy to send you out the door. And if that isn't a true story, it ought to be. And that's really how we ought to think about these kinds of things. It doesn't really matter if we make a mistake, if we learn something from it that's worth at least as much as what the mistake cost us. That should tell us several things. One of them is we ought to work in smaller pieces so our mistakes are smaller and we learn from them faster. But we should also constantly be looking to see how can we do things better, how can we do things different, and know that sometimes we're going to get that wrong, and that the folks we work for ought to have our back on those things.
Yeah, we cannot have any confusion about the mistake and lack of responsibility. People with the behavior, they are not responsible for the things, are not taking responsibility on the things they do. It's the complete different things that sometimes people try to put all under the same umbrella, and it's not. These separate things that we can discuss later during this conversation as well. Another topic we would like to bring is about talent acquisition and outsourcing. So how can leaders ensure high performance in teams with both in-house and outsourced members? What is your idea about this question here? But in general, what do you think about having people in-house and outsourced members?
Let them actually work together.
Yeah.
Do you see situations where there's a separation between in-house folks and external folks? That's interesting.
I've seen that in the US more than in Europe. The difference seems to be a lot bigger between the people who are hired externally and the internals in US companies than I've seen in Europe. But the difference can be quite big with different access, difficulty to for instance, touch deployment. That sort of thing seems to happen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have story, for example, according with Portuguese laws, some companies might get into trouble if outsourced members are taken care and treated exactly as internal. Because if they do that, they can ask to become internal for long-term employees. Okay, they can become employees long-term as well.
Well, I have seen that happen in the United States as well. That they wanted to make sure that you knew that you were not an employee and just because you've been here a while doesn't mean we're all of a sudden you can just become an employee. But I think the places I have been as an employee or as an outside, long-term consultant, contract programmer. Hi, Oscar. We tend not to be seen that differently. The only way you could tell the difference between employees and contractors at Chrysler was the color of your badge. Of course, we had at the times we had huge numbers of contract employees because that was just kind of the model they followed. But I can understand that there needs to be legal issues. Oscar, what are you meowing about?
Yeah, exactly. Be aware, John is saying, be aware of the contract language. It can have negative impact, Lopo says, not financial, but in work relationships. Bring them together, integrate them, treat us as the same. Yeah, but some companies, they are so scared about those laws and things like that. They become really, really difficult to have people in the same place to have dinner. Because they will have trouble later. They need to employ them like if they were on their own and they are just for a short time. And what else do we have here about with this is about, well, we have seen as well, finding today remote working options are becoming gives a lot of flexibility for people to remote work. But at the same time, when you want to build a team or want to build a product, or you want to build a service that you really need to have people in place thinking and acting and working together. If you haven't built that before the previous slide, if you haven't built that trust, this will be much, much more difficult. And in some cases, it will never happen.
That's an interesting thing. Having, like I said, not worked in a year and a half or so, and doing the kind of stuff I did even when I did work. That the challenges of building a team when people you may never have actually met people you work with in real space. What kind of challenges have you all seen around that, and what kind of things have you seen that work to mitigate those kinds of issues? Ooh, somebody has their hand up. Diane.
Hello, thank you.
Hi.
Hi. So about remote work, one of the main challenge for me that I've seen about it and working remotely, for the last probably 4 or 5 years, it's really about being intentional about it. Remote work requires that from a company perspective, from an organizational perspective, we are intentional in the way we will communicate, in the way information will be accessible, and that we are actually building teams around motivated individuals. In some ways, it is quite, like the same as when we are co-located, but there is one, like, let's say 2 pieces for me that are more present is the intentionality because we don't have osmosis communications, and we need to be more intentional about the tools as well. So everyone uses the same tools, everyone uses the same channels of communication as well. We know where is the source of truth for the informations. And there is more space as well to remorse or void. And I'm always saying nature hates the void. So we need to be really intentional about working remotely. So that's the thing for me.
Yes, because when you're co-located, when you're in the same room with someone or the people you're working with, as you said, you can learn things by osmosis. You can just hear things happening around you and understand the direction in which you're going. And that's much, much harder to achieve when you're dealing with people online like this, or your primary form of communication is Slack or something like that. It's hard to do the things that really cause people to come together and create a small community around the problem you're trying to solve, and that becomes a huge challenge. Have you seen any? Mark. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. Mark, you went. I'll let Mark say something, and I'll quit blabbering.
Oh, no worries. Just really briefly. I just remember a previous team, we introduced mob programming and asked the team to try it for a certain amount of time. We put everyone in the room to work on something for a couple hours, a couple of days a week, to intentionally be in a room, even though we were all remote. And it wasn't just developers. I mean, we'd have everyone in the room.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'd have the product manager show up so we could ask some real-time questions. If we could get, I worked for a university and we had internal teams delivering to business units. We would even get, we would call our subject matter experts in the business part of the team, even they weren't in the reporting line or whatever. And that goes a long way, I think, to bring the kind of conversations that's necessary. Otherwise, you get the tools and stuff becoming the brokerage and you lose that conversation, which I think is most important.
I think that's really important. You know, one of the big things that we did back when we were inventing extreme programming was that we physically moved into our customer's workspace. And so we sat with them doing our work so that we could understand what they were doing and they could understand what we were doing. And it was just became a conversation between what was going on. Another thing, you know, one of the rules of extreme programming that we didn't write down, but I think was really important, was there must always be food. Because nothing builds trust, nothing builds the community like eating together. And so there was always something there, a little, you know, a bag of pretzels, you know, some of those awful Twizzlers, whatever. But there must always be food. And you lose that when all we see is somebody on Zoom, all we hear is things through a headset. And you lose the ability to create a shared culture through those sorts of things that are not obvious to how the team works. Has anybody here had any kind of interesting little rules around your teams that are there to foster that kind of engagement between people?
Oh, sorry. I worked with a team that was fully remote. The whole company was remote first. And one of the things that I noticed was that trust was very absent in the beginning. And people don't work together, right? They tend to just take each their own task and work on that. And there was a lot of comments about the work that had been done afterwards, as you can imagine. And one of the things that we started doing was pairing. It was not necessarily really pairing, but definitely making sure that the newer people in the team always started off with a face-to-face Zoom discussion before they start working on stuff, just to talk through it and to make sure that we kind of know what a good direction would be. The very, very simple, basic little thing, especially when the team is not used to doing things like mob programming or even pairing or that sort of stuff. And it helped a lot to build the trust actually within the team, because the senior people got more trust in the new people joining, that they could actually do the job, and in the other direction, they actually got the information they needed to be able to do the job. So
yeah, thank you. Yes,
John, do you want to add something to that?
Go ahead, then.
Yeah, well, if possible, being able to actually go and meet in person, at least towards the beginning, and break bread, and I find that, and drink beer or whatever, I find that really valuable especially when sparks might fly, you know, a month later, you know, remotely because of misunderstandings or something like that. At least you had a chance to see each other. You know, you're real and you're not ogres. And so I think that's it, whenever possible, that's a good strategy.
Well, there's a great story, I think probably Craig Larman tells in his less training about the program in the U.S. military around the development of the first submarine launched nuclear missiles, the Polaris project, and the development of the submarines that go along with that. And it was a very famous story because this was the first major weapons program that came in early and under budget. And there's all these kind of different stories about how this happened. And so finally, someone actually went and talked to the engineers running the project to find out how this happened. And they said, the reason we were able to do this is we had an unlimited travel budget. We could go talk to anybody we needed to talk to. And it turns out that breaking down those barriers to communication make a big difference. You know, if we're saving all this money by letting people work remotely, well, maybe we ought to take some of that money and put it into travel so that people can go and actually see people and find out really what's going on. Because the way we communicate loses a lot of information. You know, if you doubt that, go off and read Edward Tufte's paper on how the overuse of PowerPoint led to the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster.
Dennis, you had the question as well?
No, I had a food story.
Oh, okay. I'm always up for food stories.
This was in a company where people were working in cubicles, right? And didn't want to just kind of sit cramped together in meeting rooms. So the experiment was to serve warm food at the same time every day. And it was a specific kind of warm food that would emit smells, right? And kind of attract software people.
Yeah. What a great idea.
And the rule was, you know, it was in a meeting room. The room had a name, and the rule was come in, you know, grab a snack, grab some tea or coffee. You don't have to stay. You can just come in, grab food, and leave again. But the practical effect was people started talking to each other and recognizing each other. Oh, from the badge. Oh, you are so and so. And there were stations set up there that they could do stuff with. And it was pretty good attempt at doing achieving this team building when it wasn't even honestly Agile or Scrum at all.
Yeah.
+1 on the
Great idea. I love that.
Yeah, there is a soccer trainer that the Leicester, and what he did is he made the team to make themselves their own pizza, and he said, well, you need to do your own food so you can talk to each other's. And I took that idea, and with some leaders of an organization, I asked them. They had a huge company with a kitchen. I said, look, you're going to make the food for your teams. And my point is, these guys are not saying the truth to their managers. Their managers are not saying the truth to them. Lack of trust, lack of everything that you can consider that not good environment. That will not create a good environment. It's always suspicious. People don't trust. People don't, and they not get responsibilities to do their own stuff. And how did we show that? Instead of telling them straight ahead, right, you know, very pragmatic way in their faces, we just let them do their pizza. Well, what do you think the pizza was? Amazing? No, it sucked. Do you think they said it sucks? No, they said, well, some people putting more ketchup on top of a pizza, which is very normal. We see people putting a lot of ketchup on top of a pizza, right?
Not where I go. Wherever this is, they don't understand pizza.
Exactly.
Not a chance.
So can you imagine? You see, look, what you're seeing here, that lack of conversations And they see themselves so miserable because they knew it was so bad. They said, why don't they talk to us and say, look, here it comes. Now we need to go backwards. Now we need to understand what happened to make this what we are here today. Now here it comes another problem when you started studying this or start researching what happened in the company. They will not remember. When you do the exercise future backwards, they only remember a few things. Even the collective memory is not there. And that's a very easy way for you to see there is no collective memory. People are not aligned. They don't have the same goals, even if it's written on all the walls. Each of them is doing what they want, whenever they want, the way they want, and how they understand. And that for me was a good understanding between perception and perspective. Perception, what I think, it's good for me. Perspective, this is the way I see it, but I need more people to see if I have a collective memory about what the problem is. And most of the organizations don't spend time on this.
I saw two interesting things go by. One of them there from Luther about how often people ask for help. And I think that's an incredible metric, an incredible view of how much trust there is in an organization, and how people learn to help each other. You know, one of our rules back at Chrysler at C3 was which was brought about based on practical experience, was that if someone did not complete something by the end of the iteration, they were not allowed to work on it next time. We call this no second chances. Because once you blow past the first deadline, the second one doesn't become that important to you. You know, it's like stop signs. About the third one, you don't even, look up at them. At least that's how I drive. But an interesting thing that happened about that was the number of times one of the team would stand up and say, I'm calling no second chances on myself. I'm working on something and I discovered I really don't know how to do it. So somebody please take this away from me. And think about the level of trust required within a team to be able to do that. Just, to stand up and say, I'm not as smart as I thought I was. Give me something else to work on, and somebody take this away from me before I hurt myself. And I think that's a really powerful thing that happened. Diana said something too, and it goes, well, back there, I don't remember what it was. I lost my train of thought. Apparently Diana's team had talking about culture within the organization is how to offend the most countries at once challenge. You got to tell us about that.
That was in response to John saying like, unless it's like a French fry pizza, and it's like, okay, so we can offend, France, Italy, and Belgium at the same time, because poor Belgium, it's the one who invented the fries.
And they never get credit.
Never.
Very good. So all those things are also about creating a successful culture. What are the key elements that define a culture of success? Those ones, when you get in the office, you say, or even in the remote office, you say, I like to be here. Of course, in some cases, might not be every time, every day, but by the end of the month, by the end of the year, well, I will not change this easily for any other thing. Today, we will not say forever or never, but at least easily, I will not change this for anything. So what do you think, what are these key elements and how leaders should cultivate them within their teams? Because another thing that we have been seeing is leaders preach one thing, they practice another thing. And that's lack of coherence. And sooner or later, when there is a difference between why we do what we do and how we do what we do, that lack of coherence will be so much visible that irony and many other things will come up, and then the problem is already installed in your organization. And getting away from this problem, it will be very, very hard, and you spend a lot of time, and time it's money. So it could be a huge silent waste that you don't see, but it's taking time and money and focus from a lot of people. So what do you have to say on this?
Yeah, I think that's important as a way. You said coherence, yeah, just like consistency, right? I'm behaving in a way that lines up with what I espouse. And that was studied a lot. Chris Argyris and Peter Senge, how you say the name, I always say it wrong, and the ladder of inference and things. Just, yeah, are we consistent with what we say? And can we learn about how we're working? Rather than just working according to the book or the structure or the schedule, right? Are we actually evaluating how we're doing it and improving it? That's the double loop learning. And I think that boosts trust along the way.
Yeah, if you have an organization who are really working every day, behaving in a consistent way, you don't need to put up those stupid posters on the wall saying, here's what we believe here at this company. You can walk around and understand what they believe, because that's what they're doing, right? The signs don't change culture. They just become a sign that the organization is not self-aware enough to know that what they have on the wall is not what they're doing. So you ought to take those things down. Yeah, demotivation. Yeah, I used to, yes. None of us are as dumb as all of us.
Yeah, and that's teamwork. Like that's under teamwork. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they're great because I always hated seeing those in rooms and see the people actually behaving completely not like the thing on the wall.
That's right. Yeah, take those down and build a culture that you really want, and celebrate the things that need to be celebrated to reinforce that culture.
Yeah, so as you can see so far, and we are almost getting to the end of this webinar, but the thing that we have been discussing here is a lot of companies rush to start a project or a product or a service. They rush a lot. Today, it's becoming more critical, and even this weekend, we chat here in Atlanta, we are going to have a human factors training, and several companies, even Navy SEALs, even the aquarium, anyone that cares about cybersecurity teams, all of them today are paying much more attention to this, which means before they say this is the team for the project, they want to understand the human factors. They want to set up the tone of voice. Are these the right people to the right thing? Yes, there is a lot of uncertainty. We know that we'll not know everything in advance. We know that. But at least we need to do some checkup. We need to do some awareness about who are these people? What is their behavior? And their behavior is not what they say, it's what they do, and especially when they are under stress. And that's what we're going to do over the weekend. We're going to get people under stress and see their behavior and see how they act and react, because that's much more interesting to understand how people are, and then combine them with the right people that might make the right fit so they can do something. But even though we will not know everything until something gets done, right? So a couple of things that we have seen as well is in a successful culture, we have people engaged. People are engaged. They want to go to done. They don't spend time talking. They want to go to done. They have empathy, which means, well, at least I give a chance for people to listen to others and to try. They are okay also with navigating cultural differences. But of course, we need to understand where are the boundaries. There are things that has nothing to do with the work. There are things that has to do with the work. And we need to understand what are those things, right? The way today, even working from home individually, it's very hard for people to know communication skills. Each day, we were not built to communicate in group, in teams. We are pretty much more easy to communicate like, ask for my food, ask for my beer, ask for my drinks, ask for my things. Even in schools, in many countries, we are educated for my things, much way like this. not so much for our thing. It's even when we talk about in an agile environment, people say my team. Well, again, it's our team, not my team. We know it's not on purpose, it's small details, but we can see this very, very easily in the speech that everybody's coming and saying everywhere.
The challenge, you know, in the kind of work we do today is really not how many people we have working. It's not, you know, the work we do is governed not by how many hands we have on keyboards, but by how many brains we have on a problem. And it turns out it doesn't really matter how many brains you have on a problem if all those brains work exactly the same way. They think the same way, they believe the same things, they approach problems the same way. You just have a lot of the same brain as opposed to a lot of different brains. And so we're learning more and more the importance of diversity. Diversity across dimensions we didn't even think about 20 years ago. I used to work with a lovely person, Ann Anderson. And when she and I would pair on something, she would say things that I just could not understand. It was like she was speaking another language. And at the time, it was very frustrating. But in retrospect, that was a wonderful thing because it challenged me to approach problems in a different sort of way. And so we need to celebrate that different diversity and to treat everyone equally and to be very, very inclusive, because that gives us power to solve a whole world of problems. You know, there's some kinds of problems you don't want me trying to solve because that doesn't interest me and I'm going to do a crappy job of it. But there's other kinds of people who that's the kind of thing they love. And they can do that thing I can't do. And so you want to think about how do I blend people on a team so that we can address all these different kinds of issues and have that web, that matrix of skill and thought patterns that allow us to overcome whatever challenges come up. And in the moment, that can be uncomfortable. And we have to learn how great that is, that discomfort is a sign that we're growing. And that can be very, very powerful. Gene, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chad.
Shut up, I think.
Yeah, it's like a stop sign for others. I wanted to add this important note that you just made, Chad, because we had the hour. So I wanted to. This is a very, very good place to break. So it's the pivotal thing that you just said. So thank you very much. I wanted to thank you and Hugo together. You guys did an amazing job, actually unpacking a pretty important and somewhat sensitive topic for many people and organizations with respect to safety and culture, and the culture being the corollary to structure. So I want to personally thank you very much for you pulled off the interesting one, right? You came together from over the pond. You know, Hugo made a trip.
You won't believe the trouble he had getting here.
Yeah. But I really want to thank you both, really, and the small crowd we had today. I want to thank you very much for joining and your good questions. I definitely hope that the recording is going to come out successful. I know we had an attempt of a Zoom bomber earlier today, but down with a surface to air missile very well. We'll clear the sky. Hopefully,
it's always great to see you, Gene. So
yeah, same here, and thank you for John Kern.
Yep.
You know,
everybody.
Yeah, we saw good friends here. Well,
yes.
Just to let you know,
some of the
Chat is a great cook, by the way. It's a great cook. He does great food, so I always come here to eat. So that's one of my favorite hobbies. You can meet us here as well by September 19th to 21st in Lisbon. We are going to do the World Management Agility Forum. Things like this will be addressed for sure. We are talking about reimagining management, not that we can reimagine management, but we can do something for sure. In the age of AI, with so many challenges that we have, even AI can be a great and huge challenge. So we're going to talk about all those things with great people. Jim Highsmith is going to join. I think John is coming as well. So many other good people is also coming. So I hope we can count on you online or in person. It will always be a small conference, no more than 300 people. So we have time for good conversations, good talk. And we also have a gala dinner for those that are going to attend the masterclass. We have a nice gala dinner that, will get fun as well. And we go overnight to see a little bit about also Lisbon. So if some of you already know everything about these techniques, well, perhaps the gala dinner and Lisbon might be on first. The order should be, let's start on there and then we go to the other things. I hope we can see you and hope you can join, because it would be great to have you there. And we can talk about all those things. So saying that, happy Friday, have a great weekend. I hope to see you soon again here or somewhere else. Just drop us a line on LinkedIn, whatever you need. We're more than happy to help as well.
Thank you all.
Cheers. Send me that information. I'll include it. All the best.
Okay. Thank you, Gene. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Gene. Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Good to see so many good friends.
Yeah.